Hey everyone. Today we're jumping into something that I think could really change how you see the words I'm sorry. We're going to break down what a real apology looks like, one that gets us away from all the guilt and blame and actually gets us to a place of repair and, well, alignment. So let's just dive right in. I mean, we've all been there, haven't we? You're on one side or the other of an apology that just clunks. It's supposed to make things better, but so often it feels like it's just stirring the pot. The big question is, why? Why does that happen? And instead of feeling like things are resolved, we usually just walk away with this icky feeling, like the whole thing was hollow or maybe even humiliating. Sometimes it feels totally forced, like you're pulling teeth, or it just turns into this weird, unspoken power struggle. If that sounds familiar, well, you're definitely not alone. All right, so let's start digging into the real root of the problem here. Why does our default way of saying I'm sorry so often just completely fail to fix anything?
So get this. The source we're looking at makes a really fascinating point. The issue isn't that we're all just bad people who are terrible at apologizing. Nope. The problem is that our whole cultural idea of what an apology is just wrong. And here it is. This is the big, game-changing idea. We're all taught to think of an apology as admitting you're guilty. But what if it isn't about that at all? What if instead it's just a correction, like fixing a mistake in a math problem, a realignment? Let's unpack what that really means. Okay, so this brings us to the biggest bad guy in this whole story, what our source calls the fault frame trap. It's our obsession with figuring out whose fault everything is, and it's the main reason our apologies tend to blow up in our faces. And this is exactly where things go off the rails. You see, when saying I'm sorry means I am a bad person or I was wrong, what's our first instinct? We get defensive, we fight back. Or we just give this fake, resentful apology to make the conflict go away. We start playing games instead of being sincere. This obsession with fault creates three really toxic situations. First, you've got defensiveness. That's when we refuse to apologize because we don't want to feel bad about ourselves. Then there's false humility, the big dramatic apology that's all for show with zero intention of actually changing. And finally, power inversion, where the apology becomes this weird tool to either put someone in their place or to completely submit to them. None of this is about actually fixing the problem. So if it's not about finding fault, then what is it about? Well, let's look at a much more powerful and, frankly, more effective model. It's all about making a structural correction. The real problem that needs fixing is something the source calls structural misalignment. Now, that might sound a little academic, but think of it like this. It's when something we said or did, it doesn't even matter if we meant to, made the other person feel unseen or disrespected. It's like the wiring between two people got fried. The apology is just the tool you use to fix that circuit. And this right here, this is the crucial shift. We get so stuck arguing about our intent, but I didn't mean it that way. Sound familiar? This new model says, forget about that for a second. Ask a better question. Did my words have the impact of making the other person feel properly recognized? If the answer's no, well then a correction is needed. Simple as that. Okay, so what does this structural correction actually look like when you're doing it? Well, a real apology, a good one, performs three really simple but pretty profound functions. First, it repositions the other person. That just means you acknowledge their experience is real and valid. You're not going to argue about how they feel. Second, you repair the alignment. You adjust the words or the tone that caused the problem in the first place. And third, you restore mutual recognition, which brings you both back to a place of respect on equal footing. And what's just as important is what this kind of apology doesn't do. I mean, look what's missing from this list. There's no begging for forgiveness, there's no trying to defend what you originally meant, no trying to get them to tell you it's okay, and you're not trying to manage their emotions for them. The job is done once the structure is fixed. Period. So let's look at the bigger picture here. This is way more than just a clever communication trick. This way of thinking completely reframes the act of apologizing. It turns it into an act of personal integrity, an act of strength. You see, when we apologize this way, we're not admitting that we're a bad person. Not at all. We're actually showing that we're strong enough and self-aware enough to see when something's out of whack and that we're precise enough to fix it. It's really an act of aligning ourselves with reality. And this really just gets right to the heart of it all. Being truthful in a tough moment isn't about beating yourself up and saying, I was so wrong. The higher truth, the more powerful truth, is just recognizing, hey, the connection between us got messed up, and I'm taking the action to restore it.
So that kind of leaves us with a challenge, right? The next time you're in a conflict, a moment of friction, are you going to get stuck in that old trap of fighting about whose fault it is? Or are you going to see it as an opportunity to do something powerful, to restore something important simply by choosing to realign?